written comic books. I love comic books. Someone who has dyslexia, I learned how to read with comic books. Well, then you know what? No one else is telling the story. I'm going to tell the story because I want to read this story. And it's the same reason I've written every single book is I write the books that I want to read and nobody's writing them for me. So I'll do it for me. And that was my motivation for writing the Harlem Hellfighters because this story needs to be told.
Um, my question is like, how did the Harlem Hellfighters, or like in more general, how did the black soldiers or black people get treated after the Hellfighters came back from war?
Ah, that's a good question. This is what happens in history. In American history, you always move what's called two steps forward and one step back. What happens is the good guys, they always move forward. They move America forward to being a better country. But the people they leave behind always want to pull the country back. So America is always a fight between forward and back, forward and back. So it's like you have slavery and slavery gets abolished, but then you have the KKK that starts right after that. Now, we still move forward though. We don't go back to slavery. We still move forward, two steps forward, but one step back, KKK. So the Great Migration, you have black people moving to northern cities, getting good jobs, getting organized, getting educated, two steps forward. But then you have race riots of white people attacking them and burning down their stores and killing them, one step back. You have a president, black president, Barack Obama, would have been unheard of before. The fact that our last president, Barack Obama, could have been a slave of our first president, George Washington. That's not just like two steps forward, that's like 10 steps forward. But you get a step back. And then you get American Nazis marching in the streets like Charlottesville, so forward back. Same thing happened with the Harlem Hellfighters. Harlem Hellfighters, remember I said they came home with a giant parade? A lot of white people got scared, got real scared. And you started to have a lot of race riots in 1919. Some of the worst race riots in American history were in 1919. And it is not a coincidence that you had the rebirth of the Ku Klux Klan in 1920. That's not a coincidence that in 1919, all these black soldiers come home as heroes. And suddenly the Ku Klux Klan starts getting a lot of new membership all across America. You can actually see the footage, the film clips of thousands of Ku Klux Klan members marching in Washington, D.C. That's not old Civil War films. That's 1920. So they did not get treated well when they came home. There was what's called a backlash. You always get a backlash. People lash back at what they see as progress. So yeah, there was a lot of backlash when they came home. And that's no excuse not to move forward, but you always got to be ready for that. Whenever you move forward, whenever you do something good and new and brave, always be ready for some people to try and take you down.
Do you think more white Americans are able and more readily will be willing to hear the story of the Harlem Hellfighters compared to how it was back then?
Oh my God, yeah. Whoa, yeah. See, that's the thing about moving it forward. When you move things forward, the next generation, the young people coming up behind you, nobody's born hating, nobody's born a racist or a bigot. It's not a big deal. As a matter of fact, I do a lot of work with the US military now. I talk to a lot of soldiers and Marines. And I talked to a Marine, an old Marine, who told me that, remember, if you know this, the U.S. military was segregated, black and white, up until like 1946. And when that happened in 1946, the old soldiers, the old white soldiers were like, you can't do this. If you do this, black and white soldiers are going to kill each other, and it's going to destroy the army, and it's going to be just chaos. You know what the young white soldiers said when we integrated? You know what they said? They said, "So what? I don't care. I don't care if someone's black or white. If I'm a soldier and another soldier's fighting next to me, I don't care what color he is. Not a big deal." So yeah, now white Americans, most white Americans, let's be honest, most white Americans would love to hear this story. Whereas in 1917, no, which is why it took so long for the Harlem Hellfighters to get written about. Because right after the war, you had a lot of white men in power who tried to keep it secret, tried to kill that history. And nowadays, no, things always change. You know, I can actually think of the time, how much times have changed in my life. I'm not that old, but I am old enough to have lived through some big changes. Like nowadays, you're growing up in a time where gay people can get married and it's not a big deal. Nobody cares. Who cares if you're what your neighbors marry or what they do? Doesn't affect you. And by the way, if two people love each other, who cares? When I was your age, it wasn't just illegal. You were lucky to be alive if you were gay in 1985. Let me tell you something. And we had comedians who did whole routines about how, you know, AIDS was like a punishment for gay people, and the whole stadium would get up and cheer. You know, it was, you could still be put in jail just for being gay. That was a crime. So nowadays, who cares? So yes, things always, as long as we keep fighting and going forward, as long as we do those 2 steps forward, things will change and things will get better. You know, like nowadays, it is a horrible national controversy that our police are shooting unarmed black men. You know, and we've got to do something about that. And you see the controversy, and you see Black Lives Matter, and you see people getting angry. And something must be done. But in 1917, you know what they would call that? Good policing. Yeah, in 1917, if a white cop shot an unarmed black man, nobody said anything because that was okay. There was no investigation. It was just like, yeah, that's just the way things are. So we do have a lot. We have a long way to go. We have a lot of work to do, but we can't forget how far we have come.
Yeah.
Thank you for having this time so we can interview you and ask you questions. So
my pleasure. You're all way more mature and on it than I ever was at your age.
Thanks again, teacher.
Thank you so much, Max.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for being interested in this story and taking the time.
Come on, Mom.
Oh, Mom!
This is me in the red shirt.
Yeah, and I'm a mother. I'm another mom. Yeah, here's another one too. Here's another one. I got so interested in the story.
Young students, these are people who don't get to sleep.
Yeah,
Right.
You're right.
Yeah. I never knew about the Harlem Hellfighters until I read your book. It's really interesting. And I hope it can become a movie one day. It really should.
Well, it's funny you say that. Later today, I'm going to get on the phone with Will Smith's company, and we're talking about hopefully doing, who knows? Who knows? We're going to try. We're going to try. But you know what helped us was Black Panther.
Yes.
The idea, because Hollywood is not racist, Hollywood is greedy. So if you can prove that Black movies make green money, then that helps. And Black Panther, I think, has made like $1 billion.
Yes.
So we hope. We'll see what happens.
There is definitely an audience, and the fact that, we have been dismissed for so long, people just don't think that we are interested. It's not that. It's just that most of us would like to see our faces up there. And as you said earlier, if we can see people who have done it before us, that would encourage us to do it too. So we really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule just to